What is something someone said that changed your way of thinking forever? You will meet people that see a lot more in you than you see in yourself. It's crazy and kind of unbelievable. But that's what love is. It's from a deleted Reddit account. How you live each day is how you live your life. Simplistic. I know. Up until the point that I heard that from a friend, I had all these awesome ideas of who I was gonna be and what I wanted to do. But hearing this made me realize I wasn't going to do or be any of the things I thought unless I started living them each day. My brother was battling cancer and had to have a bone marrow transplant. He would have to come spend 2 months with me because the town he was getting treatment in didn't have a hospital that did the procedure. I was fresh out of college living in what was essentially bachelor pad. We had a regular at the restaurant I was working at, Dr. J, who always asked about my brother's progress. When I told him about the next step, he stopped me mid-sentence and says to me, "Your family is staying with me." He insisted because he lived out in the country, on a lake, and it would be very peaceful, refusing any sort of compensation. Not to mention my mom and brother would have privacy because they would be staying in the mother-in-law suite that was separate from the home. It brought tears to my eyes and I couldn't stop thanking him. Dr. J then says to me, "There's no need to thank me. It's an honor to do good." Those words will ring with me forever. That man and his wife are some of the most caring and altruistic humans I know. We judge ourselves by our intentions but others by their actions. This put a lot of things into perspective for me. A sergeant of mine in the Marine Corps once told me no matter how big the plate in front of you is, the only way to finish it is one bite at a time. It's amazing how many times over the years I've had to remind myself of this great piece of advice. I'm a software engineer, and tend to do my best work when I am around people that are better than me. This quote has always stuck with me and I make a lot of decisions with it in mind. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Gladwell is skeptical about this, of course. Others, including me, are skeptical of him. In David and Goliath he talks about how it's actually useful to be in a situation where you're the top of your class relative to others due to psychological effects. The phenomenon of relative deprivation applied to education is called appropriately enough the big fish little pond effect. The more elite an educational institution is, the worse students feel about their own academic abilities. Students who would be at the top of their class at a good school can easily fall to the bottom of a really good school. Students who would feel that they have mastered a subject at a good school can have the feeling that they are falling farther and farther behind in a really good school. And that feeling, as subjective and ridiculous and irrational as it may be, matters. How you feel about your abilities, your academic self-concept in the context of your classroom shapes your willingness to tackle challenges and finish difficult tasks. It's a crucial element in your motivation and confidence. Quote from here. Got garbled unfortunately. Ash web page. Not all your friends need to be forever friends. Some people are just meant to be your friend for that particular time in your life. And that doesn't make it any less meaningful. The connections you had were real and important, and the growth you gained from it is yours to keep forever. Do you feel victory when your words cause pain? I grew up in an abusive environment and I left it, but it took years for me to leave the actions I'd learned behind as well. I wasn't a good person because I had no example. Being a good person is all I want to be. Wow, this hits home. I got out of an abusive relationship horrified to find myself repeating the abuser's behavior. I had no idea how difficult it is to break free from it. As someone who was physically abused and unable to do anything about it, I learned how to slice people's psyches apart verbally and humiliate them. Literally reduce them to tears if I had to so. In the past, the answer to this question was yes. Now, I know how to use those same techniques to build people up and resolve conflicts, and it's made for a really fulfilling life so far. I'm sorry you had the past you had, but life is a story we have to write with no edits. Just choose your next word well and it will become a good sentence, leading to an awesome next chapter. Good luck. When you are torn between two choices, always pick the one that will make the best story. Grandpa always said this, and once I started following it, life became a lot more interesting. And that's how Grandpa stopped being a mediocre painter and started a new German empire. Kids. When I was 12, I was criticizing someone's project in shop class. A girl came up to me and told me very calmly, "You're always criticizing people. Why are you so mean?" It was a very simple thing to say, but it hit me hard while my personality was still developing. I think her neutral tone was important too. Something clicked, and I realized she was right. I was kind of an asshole. It changed the way I behaved forever. I guarantee she does not remember the exchange, or even me at all. Sometimes it doesn't have to be something poetically profound, just something true said with honesty at the right time in your life. I had something like this happen in my drawing class, my freshman year at art school. It was a basic class and there were a lot of different levels of experience, since some kids went to public high schools with basic art education, and others were a bit more advanced since they went to art-based high schools and programs. There was this one kid who was the latter, and just was really unnecessarily mean, rude, and unhelpful to the kids he deemed weren't good artists. It finally got to a point where during a critique where he was being rude, I said in a neutral tone, "Why are you always so rude? All here to improve." He just stared at me, and the instructor redirected the conversation. But that kid actually started offering suggestions to help kids out, instead of just pointing out the mistakes and making fun of them. I was this person. Sadly, I didn't realize this till very late in life. I was reading Game of Thrones and read this. Jon snapped, "They hate me because I'm better than they are." Number. They hate you because you act like you're better than they are. They look at you and see a castle-bred bastard who thinks he's a lordling. The armorer leaned close. "You're no lordling. Remember that. You're a Snow, not a Stark. You're a bastard and a bully." A bully. Jon almost choked on the word. The accusation was so unjust it took his breath away. They were the ones who came after me. 4 of them, 4 that you've humiliated in the yard. 4 who are probably afraid of you. I've watched you fight. It's not training with you. Put a good edge on your sword, and they'd be dead meat. You know it. I know it. They know it. You leave them nothing. You shame them. Does that make you proud? Jon hesitated. He did feel proud when he won. Why shouldn't he? But the armorer was taking that away too, making it sound as if he were doing something wrong. "They are all older than me," he said defensively. "Older and bigger and stronger. That's the truth. I'll wager your master at arms taught you how to fight bigger men at Winterfell, though." "Who was he?" "Some old knight, Sir Roderick Castle," Jon said warily. "There was a trap here." He felt it closing around him. Donal Noy leaned forward, into Jon's face. "Now think on this. Boy, none of these others have ever had a master at arms until Ser Aliza. Their fathers were farmers and wagonmen and poachers, smiths and miners and oars on a trading galley. What they know of fighting they learned between decks, in the alleys of Old Town and Lannisport, in wayside brothels and taverns on the King's Road. They may have clacked a few sticks together before they came here, but I promise you, not 1 in 20 was ever rich enough to own a real sword." His look was grim. "So how do you like the taste of your victories now?" Lods no, don't call me that, John said sharply, but the force had gone out of his anger. Suddenly he felt ashamed and guilty. I didn't think. Best you start thinking. No, I warned him. And all of a sudden my perspective on life changed. From a young age I was always lucky to have been surrounded by books, education, tutors, and access to resources that would allow someone to learn and grow. When I entered the workplace I would shame people for not being smart enough or good enough. But these people didn't have such privileged backgrounds. Some of them are the kids of drug addicts, others were children raised in poor families or the foster care system, etc. They didn't have the luxury to learn and grow. Some of them got pregnant young and faced other challenges. Great quote. It's about privilege. Reddit tends to scoff at the word because it's not understood well. It's not just about race. It's growing up with things you take so completely for granted that you're blind to the fact others don't have them. If you grew up in a first world country, you have privilege. You're not supposed to feel guilty for having privilege. You're supposed to acknowledge it and let it inform how you treat other people. It's why just about every person who boasts about how they got where they are without handouts or anybody helping them, etc., deserves a punch in the fucking mouth. So you drove yourself to first grade when you were 5 years old, you hand paved the roads the bus drove on and laid every brick in your school yourself. That small loan your dad gave you when you were 20 to start your own business made a much bigger difference than you think. Simply not having to struggle to survive and wonder where your next meal is going to come from at an early age makes a huge difference to a person's development and the subsequent trajectory their life takes. I don't have a lot of things that other people my age in my country have, but I also have had a lot more than others. If I reach a point in my life where things get a little easier, I've promised myself I'm not going to become one of those jackasses who claimed they got where they are without anybody helping them. I had help every step of the way. For me that one goes almost hand in hand with this one. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. Ernest Hemingway. Instead of always criticizing others and or their work, just look at yourself. And NBSP. Edit. I saw this quote a little while ago too. I don't know from who, sorry. Highest rated comment. Whoa. My wife pointed out that I debate over everything when we started dating. Whatever subject. I think my whole family does it. I never realized until she said it how annoying it would be to try and tell someone about how your day sucked and have them tell you you're wrong. An amateur practices until he can play it correctly. A professional practices until he can't play it incorrectly. Edit. I've never had gold before. Wow. Now what do I actually do with this thing, lol? Also, I posted this on a whim, which is funny considering it's my most upvoted comment. Thanks guys. Similarly, the master has failed more times than the beginner has tried was an offhand comment from a friend to get me to play chess with him, and it stuck with me. As a teenager I started pouting after a coach yelled at me. He looked at me, said the time to worry is when I quit yelling at you because that means I've decided you're not worth the effort. I've got an older colleague at my job who said something similar. He's known for being quite a harsh joker anyway, but there was one time he had just finished joking about a release I'd put out and said something along the lines of, if I actually thought you and your code weren't any good I wouldn't say anything. I get the whole razzing your buds, but sometimes this can feel like an excuse for someone to be a douche at all times. It's all about balance. You need to compensate in some other way. For example, call them idiots all week, but be there to help them move a fridge in the weekend. That's how bad commits get in. We have a guy at my current job who, before a new set of senior guys came in, was given free rein because everyone was exasperated with trying to show him where he was going wrong. Now he won't take advice on board because this is how it's always been. If you don't have time to do it right, you must have time to do it over. Edit. Thank you for the gold. It is my first. This is what my username is named after. When my parents first met, my dad took my mom out every Friday night and would look forward to Fridays all week long because of it. Years ago when I was down about something, he told me about how he was in a rut until he found what made him happy, and that was all the Fridays he spent with my mother. He told me to find my Friday. Find what makes you happy and go after it. So that's what I do. I try to better myself and really focus on the things and people that make me happy. Sounds cliche and stupid, but don't let anyone or anything live in your head for and free. Heard that on my first day in drug treatment. Almost have 2 years sober. My wife was the first person to tell me that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It gets attributed to a number of people who probably didn't say it, but it really hit home when she was the one who told me. Reminds me of a quote by Buddha. Holding on to anger is like holding on to a piece of hot coal preparing to throw it at someone. You're the one who gets burned. It was a comment I saw on Reddit a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember it verbatim, but it was something along the lines of how parents raise good children but should instead be raising good adults. The thought blew my mind and really got me thinking. Let kids be kids. Let them screw up occasionally and let them be sad every now and then. They're only preparing themselves for the real world and will be ready to face it when the time comes. Most parents do a great job raising good children, and when those kids grow up, they're clueless how to handle real world problems. Wish I had a link to the comment to credit the user that posted that comment. This reminds me of a quote from a Terry Pratchett book, Hog's Father, which is, after all, what was the point of teaching children to be children? They were naturally good at it. Kids don't need to be taught how to be kids, they are born knowing. What they need to be taught is how to be a respectable adult. I was in San Francisco on a school trip and I went out of our hostel for a cigarette. I was going through some shit at the time and wasn't handling it well. A homeless man came up and asked for a cig. So I gave him one and he sat and smoked with me. He asked what was bothering me. So I told him I was having some trouble with my girlfriend but I was okay. And he told me something I've never forgotten. Son, stop pretending you're okay. You're not okay. Sometimes in life shit happens and you won't be okay. But that's okay. Really resonated with me, helped me come to terms with a lot of things in the years since. It's a cultural thing. In Eastern Europe we ask how are you doing only friends and family, and they replies with telling how they really are. And some people, even if they are fine in American way, they say something like same old shit, but literal translation would be same old poverty. So the conclusion is we would give this homeless straight answer that we're not okay. And when I personally deal with Americans or Canadians, I need to be over enthusiastic. Otherwise they have wrong impression that I'm sad or something if I respond that I'm okay, because for them okay means meh. American living in Poland wrote, Americans and Brits are sometimes so indirect that it's cringe-worthy. If you've ever heard excuse me, but would it be possible if I could maybe just a little bit? You know what I'm talking about. Poles get to the point faster. I don't think it's a problem, but sometimes it can be uncomfortable in situations like, for example, I get a text that just says okay. With Americans, if you send a message like that, you know someone is pissed. It should be more like, okay sure no problem. That's us agreeing not once, but 3 times for good measure. In Poland, they're just agreeing. Once is enough I guess. This also proves our tendency to exaggerate. Nothing is good. Everything is great, fantastic, spectacular. In Poland, okay means just that. In our house we regularly ask each other, Polish okay or American okay, meaning, it is good. Polish okay or just a. American okay, meaning the statement, you look okay, can have two quite different meanings depending on which of us says it. More, Poles versus Americans policy versus Americani webpage. My German tutor told me something similar about Germans when I was trying to say something exactly as I would in English, like excuse me, would it be possible to please buy some bread rolls? Thanks. She was like, no, it's Zweibrötchen bitte. I said, is that polite? She said, you said bitte, please. For Germans, it's very polite. It takes some getting used to as a Brit. Not saying twisty sentences that negate themselves 6 times. That's such a San Francisco story. Glad to hear it was helpful though. I was worried about being a bad father. Then someone told me a bad father wouldn't worry about being a bad father. Blew all my doubts away in a microsecond. I was in McDonald's with my dad when I was around 10-year-old. I remember him asking me to take the tray to the bin at the end and I said that's their jobs. Someone else will do it. My dad said someday you may have to do a job you don't particularly like and that other people could make easier or more difficult for you. You'll wish they made it easier. He also said fat girls will always be more grateful, so you kinda got to take it and leave it with my pa. Similar experience, but I got, with that kind of attitude, you'll be the one clearing the trays. Similar experience, but I got, do as you're told and take the fucking tray. Friend of mine dumped a girl for that. They get paid to do it. If you can dump someone after just several dates, anyway. Death is only the end if you think the story is about you. I find it comforting for whatever reason. Never make fun of someone for things they can't change. Edit. Thank you very much for the gold, kind stranger. Never make fun of how someone laughs or soon you won't hear them laugh at all. I experienced this at my old job. There was a woman who had a funny sounding laugh, and we all used to imitate it. It was actually a very endearing quality and added a lot of life to the environment. But it made her self-conscious and she stopped laughing almost altogether. I always hated that happened. I have a ridiculously loud laugh. It's almost a guffaw. I am also a lady person, so I get a lot of shit for it. An ex literally shamed me about it so bad that I forced myself to laugh quietly and covered my mouth when I did so. After we broke up, I decided I would never let someone make me feel shitty for my hilariously booming laugh. Whenever I meet someone with a cacophonous laugh, I tell them how much I love it and how much joy it gives me. Because most people with big dumb laughs are often very self-conscious about it. Fuck that. Love your laugh. Own that shit. Don't let people take your laugh away from you. If you want to be good at something, you first must be willing to be bad at it. My guitar teacher said this to me after I expressed that I felt like giving up because I wasn't making the progress I thought I should be making. It made a lot of sense to me and it helps motivate me whenever I attempt something new. Edit. To those who have asked, yes, I still play some. I'm still not that great, but I enjoy it. And I'm better than I'd be if I had quit. Sucking at something is the first step to being sorta good at something. Jake the dog. If your ball is too big for your mouth, it's not yours. The dog of wisdom. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. I remember seeing this guy going above and beyond all the time. Always going the extra mile. I asked him why and he said something kind of cryptic, but it blew me away at the time. To do what ought to be done, but would not have been done unless I did it. I thought to be my duty. Now that I'm a father, I'm saying this shit to myself every day. The things to do are the things that need doing, that you see need to be done, and that no one else seems to see need to be done. Then you will conceive your own way of doing that which needs to be done that no one else has told you to do or how to do it. This will bring out the real you that often gets buried inside a character that has acquired a superficial array of behaviors induced or imposed by others on the individual. Letter to Michael, the 16th of February 1970. Michael was a 10-year-old boy who had inquired in a letter as to whether Fuller was a doer or a thinker. Richard Buckminster Fuller, Wikiquote webpage. Whatever crawls up his ass won't give me a bellyache. My granddad allows me to distance myself from other people's drama. Honest Millia note, a Polish proverb. Not my circus, not my monkeys. That shit kept me away from drama for a long time when I tried to help people out in their problems. Everyone is the main character of their life. Now I stop and think whenever someone is being self-absorbed, it's just they're excited over something that happened in their life because that's what's most important to them. A similar one. No one thinks of themselves or their motives as evil. Very important when writing antagonists in fiction. Everything that has ever been done was justifiable in the mind of the doer. I suffer from serious depersonalization disorder, so I see myself as just another person going through the motions. As a result, though, I don't have any motivations beyond sleep and eating enough to not die. My life is literally like watching a rat in a cage. I stumbled upon your post history from this comment and you're at least far more interesting than a rat in a cage. Good luck. Hope things get as good as they can get for you. Have you ever considered doing an AMA about your DPD? The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Stephen McCraney. Saw it first on Reddit and it stuck with me. On the same note, this little story. A novice asked Master Banzan, what separates the monk from the master? Banzan replied, 10,000 mistakes. The novice, not understanding, sought to avoid all error. An abbot observed and brought the novice to Banzan for correction. Banzan explained, I have made 10,000 mistakes. Suku has made 10,000 mistakes. The patriarchs of open source have each made 10,000 mistakes. Asked the novice, what of the old monk who labors in the cubicle next to mine? Surely he has made 10,000 mistakes. Banzan shook his head sadly. 10 mistakes, 1,000 times each. The Codeless Code. Case 110,000 mistakes webpage. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Bruce Lee. Failure isn't an option. It's a requirement. Dom Marzetti. I know it's an act, but fuck me if it wasn't inspirational. A ship in port is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. Think about it whenever I feel like staying in my comfort zone. Smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. That's similar. I've seen it on Reddit. After my 6-year relationship ended, I felt lost. I felt like the future I had planned out, children, home, etc., were all lost. I was devastated. Then my cousin told me, sounds like you're more upset about losing your future than you are of losing him. You can't expect someone to take care of you. Only you can take care of you. I stuck to that mentality 4 years after that. I once was in a relationship for about 5 years, so I feel you, friend. I'd like to add to that quote. You've only lost the future you planned, which never existed in the first place, so in essence, you've lost nothing. Now, you make new plans. Sun Tzu teaches that you must be able and willing to adapt to any given situation. Do not only have one plan, have many, each with many parts which can be changed, and you will never fail. Losing a planned future is like having your debit card declined at the gas station. You now have the opportunity to create an entirely new future. Exactly. I have the same thing. I don't miss her. I miss being in a relationship. I'm not ready for another one. I have too much stuff to do in my life. Love yourself and everyone else will too. Every job has stuff in it you hate. The question is really if the stuff you love about the job outweighs the parts you don't like. At the time I was feeling guilty because I was in a patch where I was having a rough time with my job, which is the competitive dream job, so I felt like I didn't have a right to complain and felt guilty for not liking that part of it. But she reminded me it's okay to not like things and remember why I wanted the job in the first place. My old biology teacher told me don't judge a book by its cover, but be careful about the library it's in. Basically, a good judge of character is the people the other person hangs out with. Still get to know them. Hence the don't judge a book by its cover bit. But at the same time watch out for the social habits they have. If they hang around shitty people and do shitty things, maybe they aren't the best fit for you. I've always known this to an extent, but I never realized how family could play a role in this. If you don't like someone's family and they spend a lot of time with those family members, chances are they haven't seen the light and will end up exactly like their shitty parents. My ex has a horrible family, and always told me what awful people they are. He made it seem like he couldn't wait to get away from them. But here we are 6 years later and they're all still fully immersed in one another's lives. In the midst of our breakup, his family is doing everything they can to encourage the breakup to be as nasty as possible, and trying to turn my own family against me. So that's cool. Met this cool Italian guy going to an AC/DC concert on a plane once, and we started talking for a while. Once we landed and knew we wouldn't see each other again, he just said, "Hey man, have a good life." Just stuck with me and thought to myself, you know what, I will. Have been ever since. What a simple sentence from a stranger. Those kind of meetings are the one that leave mark in your life. Great perception from you too. If you can't explain it, you don't know it. This has fucked with me for a long time. I don't say much because I end up doubting myself. You are far more worried about what you say and do than anyone else is. Edited to @ I put this as it was said to me. I didn't mean it to be applicable to everyone, especially politicians and Donald Trump. Something similar that helped me get over cringing about thoughts in my past. I can think of a few bad memories from middle school or whatever in a minute, but it takes me a hell of a lot longer to just barely remember something one of my friends or someone else has done that would make them feel the same way. I don't give a shit about what someone else has done that was embarrassing. I might have felt bad or laughed for a day, but I haven't ever thought about it since. Assuming most people are like this, worrying about what people think of them. No one else gives a shit about what I've done, so there's absolutely no reason to stress. Just take it easy and have fun. Yeah, whenever I have a trip down Cringery Lane, I force myself to remember I've done way more good than bad, and try to remember one of my shining moments too. A few past howlers have the power to keep me awake, but the older I get, the more I understand that I am not my mistakes. I just cringe a little and move on. Same. But I heard it as you'll care way less about what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. which is a David Foster Wallace quote for those interested. Some doors are closed for a reason. Completely changed my life. I used to always be up into everyone's business, inviting them to share. Do you want to talk about it, even pressuring when they didn't feel like it? After all, I believed, if you talk about it, you'll feel better. Truth is, people need to be able to control who they discuss their problems with and choose their own time for if when they discuss it with others. And the last thing they need is some arsehole encouraging them to open up. Get off their backs. If they're not sharing their problems with you, assume there's a damn good reason and let it go. If they need you, they will find you. Another truth is, learned this from a psychologist. Sometimes people just need to stop talking about their problems and move on with their life. Not everything has closure. You don't make peace with every tragedy. Happiness is not waiting for you if only you can come to terms with your childhood or some tragedy. Some mental wounds are like physical wounds. If you keep picking at the scab, it will never heal. Time heals most things, but you have to let it. Also, there is the insight fallacy, the belief that understanding a problem will change it. Not necessarily true. We can get stuck trying to help people get to the bottom of their issues without realizing that it might not make a difference anyway. A greasy looking guy in a trailer park in Canada once stumbled up to me, drunk and high, wearing ripped track pants, and he said we can't call people without wings angels, so we call them friends. And then he stumbled off saying something like gonna get drunk as fuck, and I never saw him again. After my wife left me, I had an older co-worker tell me something like this: nothing I can say to you is going to make things easier or help you get through this, but just know that I am here to listen if you decide you would like to talk. I was so weighed down with friends and family who loved me giving me unsolicited advice when all I needed was someone who respected me enough to just listen. I always take this approach with people who are going through hard times. If you truly care about them, just listen. Eventually they will ask you for advice. More people need to do this. What a difference. Being heard versus being talked to. Truth story. I was 25 at the time, and didn't even realize that just being listened to was even a thing. When my dog passed, my grandma told me pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. At first I thought what a pessimistic view this was, but over time I began to recognize the mental fortitude and optimism it contained. From a Shower Thoughts post, every person sees the world in a unique way. When someone dies, it is, in a way, the death of an entire world. Every person sees the world in a unique way. When someone dies, it is, in a way, the death of an entire world. Shower Thoughts webpage. Reminds me of my favorite quote from Schindler's List, whoever saves one life saves the world entire. It is a quote from the Mishnah, the first rabbinic work, from thousands of years ago, preceding the Talmud, Therefore Adam was created alone in the world, to teach us that whoever destroys one life, it is considered as if he destroyed a whole world, and whoever preserves one life, it is as if he preserved an entire world. That kind of reminds me of a good quote that keeps me going when I don't get paid enough for this shit moments. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Beautiful. That's also a verse in the Quran. He who kills one man is as if he has killed all of mankind, and he who saves one man is as if he has saved all of mankind. Get busy living or get busy dying. That one got me sober. 7 years and counting. An older black guy said to me in my teens once, when you get mad, don't nobody give a fuck but you. The only time you look in your neighbor's bowl is to make sure that they have enough. You don't look in your neighbor's bowl to see if you have as much as them. Louis C.K. My favorite Louis C.K. quote: when a person tells you that you hurt them, you don't get to decide you didn't. Edit. Okay, a bunch of people who don't know the context keep telling me how he's wrong. In that episode this guy was being a dick to him the whole time. He's not talking about being offended by random stuff or outrage culture as someone put it. It was a lot more personal than that. He's not talking about being offended by random stuff or outrage culture as someone put it. Don't worry about them. Reddit has this weird obsession with getting offended about people getting offended. It's not up to you if you're an asshole. It's up to everyone else. You don't get to say no to that. Louis C.K. Dude, you're being an asshole. No, I'm not. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were. Is that part of his you're being an asshole? No, I'm not. That's not up to you. You're 4 years old. There's a huge world out there that you know 9% of. You don't get to be bored. I was 34. With few skills, 3 young children, and just finalizing a divorce. When I was discussing what to do with my future, my friend suggested that I return to school, possibly to study my newfound passion for geology. My response was, yeah, but I'll be 40 by the time I graduate. Her life-changing response: you'll be 40 anyway. Now I am 42, and 3 semesters away from completing my third, and last, degree. I am 41 and going to graduate from my local community college this May with my associates. Looking to go on for my bachelor's, just haven't decided where yet. I'm 39 in junior college as well. Lost all my credits. Long story, but my grandmother went back at 60. Became a professor after she completed her schooling. Never too old to learn. But wow. SOOO many kids. I think the profs have only 5 years on me. As a 32-year-old who's looking at going back and been really apprehensive about it, this helps a lot. I went back at 30. Do it. I even went for computer science thinking it's a young person's game. I probably won't make it anyway. Turns out age and experience is worth a lot more than I realized. The other developers at my level junior know about as much as I do, but they can't match my work ethic, my ability to communicate, or my general knowledge on dealing with tricky interpersonal situations. Edit. If you're curious, I have not yet gone on to get a 4-year degree, because I got an internship at a video game company, dream come true, which has opened many doors already. I may go on further at some point. For now I am working in an industry I want to work in, so I will continue working. Just finished my major in computer science. I have learned that majority of the people in my degree were a lot older than I imagined. There was countless people in their late 20s and mid 30s that returned to school to do computer science. Partially why I guess they always offer night course alternatives to most of the courses. A lot of people would come after work during the day to do a class at night. At first it surprised me when I realized the person sitting next to me was talking about his kids, but throughout the years I realized, especially in comp it is certainly not uncommon. It's just like when I learned there are usually quite a few senior citizens in my English classes that have said it's a delight to come back to school in their later years just to talk about and do work on books that they love since they didn't get a chance when they were younger. Made me realize that after high school the path can turn into a whole bunch of loops, and that's alright. Edit. Those seniors certainly made me think about my future after I retire, and it not being as depressing as I'd originally thought it would be, especially since you pay next to nothing after a certain age to go back to school here. to encourage seniors to be active and stuff. I love this. It reminds me of my favorite quote of all time. Don't let the time that something will take dissuade you from doing it. The time will pass anyways. Don't let the fear of the time it will take to accomplish something stand in the way of your doing it. The time will pass anyway. We might just as well put that passing time to the best possible use. Earl Nightingale. When I was telling a friend of mine that I have a hard time believing that people can like me, since I don't like myself, she told me we don't see you the way you see yourself. I know that depression alters the way I see the world, and that I see myself not as I should, but hearing that from someone else that actually cares about me really made it real. It's my go-to quote now when I struggle. It made me realize that sometimes I just need to change my perspective. Sorry for rambling so much. I never know how to stop, or put anything into words. Sorry for rambling so much. I never know how to stop, or put anything into words. Hey, you don't have to be. We're actually glad you shared this, and it was well worded, so no worries. You weren't rambling, it wasn't long or boring, and I had no trouble understanding what you meant. That's how other people see you. I guess that last sentence shows the rest of the comment in action, then. My crazy German hippie godfather once sat me down when I was an angsty self-destructing teen and said, look, Kate, I love you and I will always be here to help you pick up the pieces, but Jesus fuck, does there need to be so many pieces? If you should fray, or fall apart, in anywhere or when, I'll always try, with all my heart, to make you whole again. But if you choose to fall behind, and break and shake to bits, the day may come where I won't find a single piece that fits. I'd pay good money to have you just follow me around and narrate my life. I'd pay good money to have you follow me around and tell me who I should pay to follow me around to do stuff. Write a book already, man. The comment with some context on the top of the page, your poem in the middle and some of your own thoughts on the bottom. This is money. My father told me something similar when I was in the midst of a lot of self-destructive behavior, although, was perhaps a bit more blunt. I will always love you. Always. But that doesn't mean I like the person you have become. I think about that a lot. My dad's version of this is I will always love you, but I don't have to like you. You might be single and laying on the couch and watching Netflix tonight, but I guarantee you there are plenty of guys with bad marriages and kids wishing they were you right now. Helped me get through my divorce. Never liked rainy days. Thought they were depressing. One rainy day, my 6-year-old daughter said I love rainy days and being home. I feel all safe and cozy. Forever changed my rainy day attitude. 25 years ago. I used to work in this mail factory when I was a teenager and, like any teenager, would sometimes frantically struggle to accomplish the most menial of tasks. Enter the quiet, huge gold-chained dude from Trinidad. Look, Monday, you have to make work easier. All you have to do Monday, just make work easier. Really simple and profound advice that has helped me in every job I've ever had. Simplify your task, and you can do it better and faster. I was 6 or 7 living in Norway. The fire hydrants there were squarish and not red. I said they were stupid. My dad told me, no, they're not stupid, just different. Stuck with me to this day. I'm 37. I consider it one of the most important lessons I have ever learned. That's what I told my parents-in-law from Europe when they were visiting us in the US. They pointed out things that were wrong. But I told them it's just different. We went shopping, and my father-in-law tried on a coat. He said the zipper is on the wrong side, then he looked at me and said on the other side. Made my day. I was in my early 20s and driving across some barren portion of the US. The only radio station I could get was broadcasting religious programming. It was better than silence, but just barely. One preacher was begging for money to help homeless girls. When a caller asked him about the danger of working at a shelter with atheists, his answer changed my life. I will work with anyone doing God's work no matter what their reason, as long as they are doing so. If they deviate, then I will no longer help, but until then we're on the same team. A decade later, when Hurricane Andrew leveled Homestead FL, 30 miles from where I lived, this atheist volunteered with a church group to get supplies where they were needed. They didn't judge who they helped, and neither did I. It's sad that people consider those of different beliefs to be dangerous. Edit. Okay, there seems to be some confusion about what I mean when I say this. People seem to think that I'm okay with religious zealots and extremists of various types killing and maiming others based on their beliefs. I'm not entirely sure where you're getting this from, but I assure you, it's not the case. Obviously there are people who take shit too seriously and truly believe that they have a right or duty to murder those they do not agree with. Most of these people are classified as terrorists or extremists, and for a good reason. My actual point was that, in the comment I replied to, someone called into the radio show and basically said that working with an atheist would be dangerous for whatever reason, simply because he doesn't believe in the same things the caller and preacher believed in. That's the sad part, that she automatically labeled the atheist as a liability without even knowing their name. Eating a shitload may feel good in the moment, but take a look at how goddamn fat you are. Everyone else was too nice and kept telling me I looked fine despite being 250 plus lbs at 15. For every person out there that whines and cries about how they know they're fat, telling them does them no good, there are people like you, and me, that needed someone to finally quit playing nice and tell them the truth. After years of convincing myself I was big boned, someone finally gave me the business. I lost 135 pounds because of it. Yep. I asked for feedback on my OkCupid profile once and some internet stranger just said you are fat and it is a problem. I lost 80 pounds the next year, and though it stung in the moment, I owe it to that person. I was going through a deep depression about a year ago, and I was sitting on the patio of a bar in downtown Seattle feeling sorry for myself, getting wasted. This older homeless man comes up to me and I dismissed him before he even opened his mouth. He ignored me and said in the deepest Russian accent, "Why you not smile? I lose my wife, my 3 sons, my home and money, but I smile, because I won't give life the satisfaction of knowing it beat me." I finished my drink, went home, and pondered it all night. I now feel that way about everything that gets me down. It's not worth it to get upset, and I won't let life beat me. Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when we look back everything is different? C.S. Lewis. And then when something does change the next day, you realize that your life is almost exactly the same. My uncle sat down with me one day and said that you only get one shot at life. There's no way of knowing if this or that decision would take you through a route you'd enjoy more. You can't load up your life from a point and try different things. The place you're right now is both the best and the worst place. It's you who decides and makes if it's more one than another. Hanlon's razor. Common ever attribute to malice, at which is adequately explained by stupidity. People aren't mean. They're dumb. Approach a situation from that angle and you're a lot less offensive. A lot more capable of understanding. I like to switch out stupidity with ignorance. I feel that it grasps the idea better. The person who cut you off in traffic today wasn't trying to intentionally make you angry. Maybe they just didn't see you, and that happens to all of us. Which is what the I'm sorry hand wave is for. I see that hand wave and I instantly forgive people. Don't ever make fun of some who speaks broken English. It means they speak another language. Wow. I feel like CRP now. When people make fun of my English, I usually answer, "Oh, do you prefer to speak Swedish instead?" Usually they don't. I think it's neat that so many people speak English. I can go to a lot of places in Europe and around the world, and as long as I'm in a popular city I can probably get around because most of the younger generations know English. I feel like a jerk for not knowing anyone else's language. I took French in high school and did pretty poorly. I also tried the German course on Duolingo but didn't stick with it. I work in it and our help desk is in India. While they can be hard to understand at times and say funny phrases like "do the needful" or receive details via telephonic communication, I'm impressed as hell that they can discuss some pretty technical stuff in a second language. Yeah, I'll never criticize someone for speaking broken English because I can't speak broken anything. I'll admit to that even though I speak English natively, my use of it can be pretty broken at times. When I was 22, my friends and I went to Europe, Amsterdam, Munich, for 10 days. We landed in Amsterdam and took the train from the airport into the city. From there we got a cab to our hostel. The cab driver didn't say a word. We just told him the address and he drove there. Even the money exchange, nothing. So after we settled in, I needed to hit an ATM to get some euros. I had no idea how to get euros, but I knew we had ATMs in America, so I was hoping they had similar contraptions in Europe. We ventured out. The first man we came across was well dressed, so I figured he could help me. I held up my ATM card, furiously waving it in the air, and walked towards him yelling, "Excuse me, sir, pardon me, do you know where there is a Monday machine for card?" I point to card. "I need your US Monday machine." He looked at me, paused for a second, then laughed. "Do you want a large money machine, such as the ones they print the money on, after which they cut it up, stack it, and send it to banks? Then, once it arrives, you can withdraw with a card such as the one in your hand, from the money machine, like that one right across the street." I was mortified. I contemplated what just happened, then just started laughing. So did he. I apologized. He told me to have a good day. It was that moment I realized how uncultured I was. Edit. Spelling. Jesus fuck, this is the cringiest thing I've read this week. Have my upvote. Haha. I know. It's awful. I'm 35 now and I've learned a lot about the world since then. I'd actually say this experience made me want to learn. Edit. Pressed F1. Grammar. 3. Me. American. In Copenhagen a few years ago. Random guy on train station platform downtown. Something in Danish. Me. I'm sorry, I don't speak Danish. Random guy. In flawless English. Could you help the homeless today? Me. Look of overwhelming embarrassment. German seemed so easy at first because of the grammatical similarity to English. Then I realized all the additional complexity and gave up. For some reason, lots of people on the internet think that if you speak a broken English, you must be an American British dropout from school, or something like that, and they have the need to laugh at your grammar. I've rarely seen someone realizing and saying English is definitely not your native language. Even if you tell them, they have no idea that a language is learned through practice. Part of the learning process is getting brutally scrutinized on the internet. English isn't my first language, but I still manage to see the difference between an American Brit with bad grammar and someone who isn't a native speaker when it comes to comments. It's weird. Ugh man. I'm in Thailand today and at a coffee stand there's this fucking obnoxious British fuck buying stuff that came out to 130 bahts. He asks how much and looks at the Thai girl like she's a fucking idiot, and when she says the amount in broken English, this douche fuck turns to his friends behind him and says what the fuck is she saying, and they all just laughed. This made me so furious that I was mad at myself all day for not saying anything. That guy was such an entitled fucking cunt. He's in their country. Show some fucking respect. Edit. Whoever's mad at me for not saying anything. I get it. I was mad at me too. But I was in a family-oriented area with kids around and I didn't want to start cursing at the guy right there. And geez Brits. Apparently you're notorious for being cunts in foreign countries. Fuck you. Also in Thailand at the moment, it just astounds me that people just expect everyone to speak English. I always try to make a point in learning the basics of every language that is spoken in the countries I'm traveling to. Goes long way and usually locals appreciate it. Yeah, it would still be bad if she was in Britain and he was making fun of her. But going to Thailand and making fun of a Thai person for not speaking English? The guy's a punk ass. People in Germany are so intelligent. Even little children speak German there. When discussing non-native languages with a coworker, I'd expressed how Spanish has always been tricky for me. For some reason, he, a native Spanish speaker, scoffed and said, "Spanish is easier. I speak it since I was a baby." Do you speak any other languages? I was always under the impression Spanish was one of the easier languages to learn. Fun fact. India has a bazillion languages, and many speak 2+ native languages at least. Yet, broken English is the common factor among all. I've read in several places that English is the only language that is an official language in every one of India's states. However, India has its own English, just as American English and British English differ from each other somewhat. So too does Indian English differ from both of them, and a little more so. Sometimes when Indians speak what seems like bad English to us, it's actually good Indian English. It's just not the same as our English. I realized this one for myself. I just want to roll my eyes at people that insult others over this. The funniest part is when they are mocking students. Yeah, they may have some difficulty with English at the moment, but they are still destroying you in this class. What does that say about you? Had some students make fun of my Japanese. Yeah, I pronounce things silly, and eventually one teacher got fed up with it. He snapped at the kids and said, in Japanese, "You think her Japanese is funny? How do you think your English sounds to her? Because you don't even bother to try." He asked me how long I had been in Japan. A little under 2 years then. And then asked the kids how long they had been learning English. 6 years or so at that point. The look of shock on their faces was worth it. Quite a few of them apologized to me privately later in the day, and one girl said she was happy they finally realized they needed to try harder. She studies English like crazy, and is super nice. We made a deal that I would keep practicing Japanese if she'd keep up with English. Edit. Derped and replied to the wrong comment. Sorry. Yeah, I spoke with an English exchange student before and he said that he felt guilty and a little jealous that he only spoke English when we all spoke at least 2, many 3 languages each. It really made me think, since it's always been obvious to me that I easily speak both least English and Swedish. This is what I say now when others point this out. Thanks. I feel crap too. Maybe you don't actually like her. Maybe you're infatuated by how pretty she is. Holy shit, have I never seen clearer since. Thanks Louis, you're a real pal. My dad always told me you can't worry about what you can't control. Simple, but effective. You can't give a fuck about everything that happens. You have to pick and choose. Make sure you give a fuck when it's most important. Otherwise, keep living life and be happy. Translation. Getting mad at every little thing will do no good. Only let the most important things rile you up. Otherwise let things slide off of you. Like don't get upset when your coupon doesn't work or you're in crazy traffic. Cause that little everyday anger shit'll weigh you down. Scientists have proven that the average human being gives 60% too much of a fuck about most daily activities. Source: YouTube webpage. When I was getting annoyed with other drivers one time, a friend got pissed at my bitching and said driving isn't a game. Since then I've tried to chill out a lot more when I drive and not let other people affect me. Bob, there was a moment when I used to blame everything and everyone for all the pain and suffering and vile things that happened to me, that I saw happen to my people. Used to blame everybody, blamed white people, blamed society, blamed God. I didn't get no answers cause I was asking the wrong questions. You have to ask the right questions, Derek. Like what? Bob, has anything you've done made your life better? From American History X. That mentality brought me from a depressed dude thinking about dropping out of college to someone living in an amazing part of the world with a decent job in an incredibly interesting field, a great, loving GF, and awesome friends. I have kick-ass hobbies, enough money to buy what I want, and I haven't been bored outside of a few business meetings in years. I was in a shitty way for quite a while. Then I asked myself, what have I done in a real sense to make my life better? Why should I believe that tomorrow will be any better than today? Well, I didn't have an answer. Not one that didn't seem hollow and shitty. So I cleaned my house. Then and there. Deep clean. The next day, I woke up and thought, damn, it's nice to have the house clean. Then I rearranged my furniture to be a bit more useful. The next day, I woke up and thought, wow, this room is a lot better this way. Then I started learning new things, actively trying to make friends, starting projects, gaining skills. Every day, I tried to do something to make the next day just a little better. I tried to always have an answer to that question. Now, I still try to make sure things are improving. But life is so good. I don't actually need little boost to life. If I get it once a week, I just feel so damn lucky that things worked out as they did. You aren't stuck in traffic. You are traffic. I was commuting to college at the time. The drive should have been 45-50 minutes but typically took 2+ hours with rush hour traffic. It used to always make me really mad when I sit at standstill. Then I heard that and realized it's a selfish view. It's not that everyone else is in my way. We're all in each other's way. I have no more right to be on the road than anyone else. Since then I just go zen when I'm in traffic. And I never try to change lanes when one is moving faster. It's really always exactly like that scene in Office Space where as soon as you change, the lane you were in starts moving faster. Just chill out and wait and you'll get there at the same time as you would have otherwise. No need to make yourself extra stressed about it. Always look up. You'll never know what you'll find. Some hippie chick at a music festival told me that when we were on drugs, literally telling me to look up cause whoa dude the trees are beautiful. But now that sentence runs through my head a lot, and I believe it applies to more than just visuals. It keeps me motivated to stay positive. I don't know man. I think you're more likely to find things on the ground, with the whole gravity thing. Shit. I just found my keys. I've been looking for weeks. Turns out they were on the ceiling. I never get angry at someone for an accident. My mother. The wisdom of this statement, putting rational logic over reflexive emotion, is a guiding principle that guides me to this day. It's not what you make, it's what you spend helped me prioritize my income much better. I usually eat everything that's on my plate in restaurants because I don't like to waste food. Doggy bags aren't a thing in my country. The result is that I routinely overeat. My aunt once said to me, you know, whether you eat it or you let it go to waste, the end result will be the same. The food will be wasted. The only thing that changes is that you won't feel bloated after. I think about it every time I eat out. And I no longer overeat. When there is something to do, you can sit down and ask why bother and never find a good reason. Nothing is ever worth doing. But if you had simply asked the opposite, why the hell not, then you'd still be unable to find a good reason. Everything is always worth doing. Besides, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters runs through my head literally all the time. It reminds me all the time to have perspective. My granddad once told me when I was evaluating several university options with various bursary scholarships to consider, that it's only a bargain if it's something you want. Which also comes back to me a lot in everyday life. I tried to read Aristotle's Ethics when I was 15. Almost everything went completely over my head, but he has one passage where he likens a man who holds all the right ideals, correct thoughts and virtues but does not act upon them, to a sick man who carefully listens to the doctor but doesn't do any of what he recommends. Then he says, like the sick man won't be cured, so is the virtuous man not good. The distinction between thoughts and actions and the emphasis on the latter with regards to being good, was mind expanding for me. I think I would have been a very different person had it not been for that moment. My dad once asked me what I thought he'd be more disappointed about, smoking or cheating on a test. I'd never smoked, but I was definitely guilty of glancing at the person's paper next to me. Smoking. I'd always heard the don't do drugs speech. My dad just shook his head. One of those things is bad for your body, the other is bad for your soul. Your soul is more important. I don't know why that got to me, but it did. Edit. Dear God. A lot of your Redditors are mean as fuck. I'm officially initiated into Reddit. This thoughtful response brought to you by your cool friends at Philip Morris USA. You are a 10-pound slab of meat pirating a 150-pound ship. Protect it. If you ate a 1 pound and 50 penny taco, you would be 1% taco. Edit. Bad at math. Feel free to taco about it. You have to learn how to treat yourself like you treat other people. My therapist told me this when I was struggling through depression in college. I admitted that I always go out of the way to help other people feel better about themselves, but struggle to take care of myself. She reminded me that self-care is important and that I wouldn't be selfish and wrong in doing so. I'm late to the game, so this is going to get buried, but I just wanted to say something. Lol. Was waiting for a bus by my town's mall. Started talking to this guy just to kill time. Conversation led to religion. He had started off Muslim, then converted to Christian. While traveling he converted to Buddhism. And after him seeing many other religions, he felt that they all had truths in their teachings and are somewhat similar in the basic aspects. He said that he feels all rivers led to the same ocean. I now identify myself as agnostic. If there is a God, I believe that it will truly be just and see me as either a good or a bad person worthy of what they offer. I don't like posting religion on the internet. It always causes an uproar. All it is the answer to the question. Please don't make this a religion debate. The young adult picture novel entitled Everyone Poops hit me in a way I'm not sure it was supposed to. The stream of consciousness account is essentially a feel-good coming-of-age story celebrating individual normalcy through defecation. And that in itself has its own merit. It was comforting to know that I'm not a weird monster for producing this foul substance and leaving it in a water jar for the house to dispose of as it will. The message I took away from the work in my mid-teens was not just that everyone poops, but everyone poops. Your boss poops. The president poops. James Franco poops. That guy at the bar who's way better at hitting on these girls than you. He poops. Those girls? You can bet your bottom dollar they drop bombs as well. It became my mantra whenever I didn't feel on par in a conversation, competition, or argument. It humanizes the opponent, takes them down to your level. We're all the same, regardless of how much money, fame, or power we have. At the end of the day, we all squeeze them out. Everyone poops. This is what stuck with me from when I was a kid. With Frobskittle. Sophie said, the bubbles in your tummy will be going downwards and that could have a far nastier result. Why nasty? Asked the BFG, frowning. Because, Sophie said, blushing a little, if they go down instead of up, they'll be coming out somewhere else with an even louder and ruder noise. A was purple, cried the BFG, beaming at her. Us giants is making was purples all the time. Was purping is a sign of happiness. It is music in our ears. You surely is not telling me that a little was purping is forbidden among human beings? It is considered extremely rude. Sophie said. But you is was purping, is you not? Now and again asked the BFG. Double quote, everyone is was purping, if that's what you call it. Sophie said. Kings and queens are whiz purping. Presidents are whiz purping. Glamorous film stars are whiz purping. Little babies are whiz purping. But where I come from, it is not polite to talk about it. Redunculous, said the BFG. If everyone is making whiz purpers, then why not talk about it? We is now having a swiggle of this delicious Frobskittle and you will see the happy result. The BFG shook the bottle vigorously. The pale green stuff fizzed and bubbled. He removed the cork and took a tremendous gurgling swig. It's glummy, he cried. I love it. For a few moments, the big friendly giant stood quite still, and a look of absolute ecstasy began to spread over his long wrinkly face. Then suddenly the heavens opened and he let fly with a series of the loudest and rudest noises Sophie had ever heard in her life. They reverberated around the walls of the cave like thunder and the glass jars rattled on their shelves. But most astonishing of all, the force of the explosions actually lifted the enormous giant clear off his feet, like a rocket. Whoopee, he cried, when he came down to earth again. Now that is was pooping for you. Roald Dahl, the BFG, 1982. Feelings are not fact. I know it's gonna get lost here, but it really stuck with me when my therapist said it. Whenever I'm feeling down or ignored or angry, I try to remember that. Don't ask yourself what you want to be when you grow up. Ask yourself what problems you want to solve. Grew up in the buckle of the Bible Belt, so homosexuality was two things. 1. The worst thing in the world, and 2. A choice. Someone then asked me when I chose to be straight. That's dumb. I didn't choose to be straight, I was born this. Oh my god. Had to repost this from an old thread, it's too amazing. When I was 15 years old, I ran away from home because I was pissed off at my parents for a reason I can't remember. I didn't have much money, so I decided to hop onto the SkyTrain. public transport train in British Columbia, and ride it as far as it would go. I reached the end of the line in less than an hour, and decided I wanted to ride it all the way back again. While trying to formulate some kind of plan of how I wanted to live the rest of my life without my parents or anyone. At the last stop, or the first stop depending on your perspective of it, a girl came on and sat in the row right behind me. I didn't pay much attention to her at first, as I was busy writing my life plan on a napkin. It was a few minutes later that she got up and came sat next to me. Curious as to what I was writing, I told her the story, and after a few laughs, we began talking about everything and anything. Her name was Amanda, 17 years old, and absolutely wonderful. She told me she was getting off at the last stop, which was also the first stop. Depending on how you look at it, it was also the stop I had gotten on originally, and I told her we would ride to it together. The train ride took less than an hour, and what a wonderful hour indeed. When the last stop did come, we both knew we probably wouldn't see each other ever again. This was before the days of cell phones, and I was a shy little kid afraid to make moves. As we got to the end of the sidewalk which split in two different directions, she went right and I went left. Before saying goodbye, she turned to me and asked me a question that has become a wonderful part of my life. She asked me, "Tell me something you have done, or want to do, that you think I should do. It can be anything, as challenging as you want it to be, or as easy, as long as you give me the rest of my life to complete it. I promise I will do it." I was confused as to why, but I thought about it, and told her, "Sing a song a cappella in a room full of strangers." She said perfect and asked me if I would like a challenge as well. I told her I did, and she told me, "Read, from start to finish, Ulysses by James Joyce." I had never heard of it at the time, but I agreed, and we said our goodbyes. I have an awful memory, and can't remember most conversations I have with most people, but I remember all of that clearly. You know why? Because of the challenge she gave me. In the 12 years that have passed since, I have tried to read that book in over 150 different sittings. Every time I open my copy of the 780-page monster of a book, I always think of her, and I always think of that day. I've never been sure if it was her intent or not, but she left her lasting memory on me with that challenge. I soon after learned what she did was a completely wonderful and amazing thing for me, so I decided to keep it going. I've met a lot of strangers in my life, some that have become friends, and some, due to living in different time zones and whatnot, didn't. I don't want to just have experiences and then let them go. I want to remember these meetings, and embrace the fact that they happened. So whenever I leave someone who has left an amazing impact of my life, I always make sure to add them to my Ulysses bucket list. I ask them to give me a challenge, as difficult or as easy as they want it to be, and regardless of the fact that they have done it or not, simply something their heart has had wanted to do. Some have been easy and fun. I met a man in India 9 years ago who told me to, for a week or a month, cook by twice as much food as I intend on eating, and give the other half to a stranger in need. I completed that mission 8 years ago, and thought about that man in the time we had all the way through. I met a girl on a cruise 6 years ago, who told me to jump into a body of water on a slightly cold day, without touching or feeling the temperature of the water first. I did that the very same year. I met a couple at an outdoor music festival a few years ago that told me to wear the most bizarre outfit imaginable and walk through a public place, completely oblivious to the fact that you aren't looking normal. I did that task the very next day, at the same festival. Some have been difficult, to say the least. 3 guys I met in Amsterdam and smoked all night with told me to go to a mall and give 10 strangers 10 presents. That one took a lot of courage, but I did it a year or so after I met them. It was nerve-wracking, but at the same time exhilarating, leaving my comfort zone. A girl I met on a plane told me to skydive. I am still in the process of getting that done. A couple I met in Cali on the beach told me to tell the 5 people I hated the most that I love them and respect them. That one was very difficult because of my stubbornness, but I've come close to completing that list many a times. Still in the process. 2 more people to go, and some things have had an everlasting impact on my daily life. I met a girl at a music festival who told me that whenever I get mad at someone, walk away, sing my happy song in my head for 5 minutes, go back to the person I am mad at with a calm heart and mind, and work things out. I've made this my way of life. I once met a man at a gym in a hotel I was staying at that told me whenever your body and brain tells you that you are exhausted and done, use your heart instead and push out 2 more reps. I've made this my motto when working out or working on any kind of extenuating exercise in which my body demands me to quit. I also use it while working on anything, and while studying. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received. There are many others that each brought joy to my life. There are still many tasks I have yet to accomplish. And every time I think of these tasks, I think of the people that gave them to me. It amazes me how well I remember all these people, while I can't remember so many aspects of even yesterday. These experiences, not only do I take from them a mission or a challenge, I also take from them a memory of them that never fails to appear inside of my mind. I opened my Ulysses book for probably the 300th time yesterday, and read a few pages, which prompted me to share this story with you today. I am in the final 30 pages of the book, also known as the most dreaded of the read. In the last 40 pages or so, James Joyce doesn't use a single punctuation mark. No periods, no commas, no nothing. A straight 50-page run-on sentence. I never saw Amanda after that day, nor do I know if she ever did get a chance to sing a song to a room full of strangers. But what I do know is that she gave me a gift that has never once stopped giving. So wherever you may be, thank you for giving me the Ulysses bucket list, and I swear I'll finish it one day. My life advice? Simple. Create your own Ulysses bucket list. Beautiful sentiment, but I'd like to make sure to give credit to the actual author. Original comment here. What is a story you have been dying to tell? AskReddit webpage. Have you not seen the rest of this story? Someone on Reddit knew an Amanda with the other side of the story. Ulysses bucket list Amanda update. Ulysses bucket list webpage. Running 1.5 miles today is only about 12 minutes of your life. I know some of you sit and play your video games for 6 or more hours straight. Every dollar you spend is a little vote for the type of world you want to live in. That was a big one. This happened during an especially difficult time in my life, when I was making incredibly poor decisions that hurt me and the people that care about me. I was working a retail job, and as a customer was leaving he said, "Have a day worthy of you." For him, it was just a way of saying have a nice day. For me, I realized I was not worthy of having nice days. I used his words to inspire me to become better, so I might have better days. God grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's the classic AA saying, I'm not an alcoholic by any means, but I found that it's not limited to just that. The quote helps put things that happen in life in perspective and gets rid of a lot of anxiety. You always sound so smart. It is because I only speak when I know what I am talking about. Changed so much about how I compose myself and how often I speak up. Signal to noise ratio is so important in perception. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson. Being able to plan is meaningless if you can't adjust to changing circumstances. You don't need $1 million idea. You need a $1 idea that 1 million people will buy. Had an atheist friend asking me if I thought he deserved to go to hell. He ended up saying something like, I can't believe in a god that blackmails people into loving him. Love me or burn in hell definitely seems like blackmail. That statement made me very skeptical of religion and made me question many things. I am now an agnostic because of that statement. Every time you open your mouth, you can pull people together, or divide them. Try to do the first. Did you ever think that you might be the one that's wrong? Said to me by a close friend while we were arguing about religion. I was an adamant Christian and he was an atheist. After he said that, it made me rethink my entire view on the world. Rationally entertaining the thought that you are wrong is a valuable character trait to have. Speaking as a deconverted Christian that took 3-4 years to do so. It all started when I decided that if I was going to strengthen my faith, I was going to have to address my doubts head on instead of ignoring them and assuming what I believed was right. I still try to apply this thinking to myself now for all applications. Being a skeptic, yet also being open-minded, is a character trait I try to have. My grandfather almost instantly changed a lot of my conservative economic beliefs to be more liberal when he said not everybody is as smart as you. And it's true. Not everybody can just work hard and go to school and get a degree and get a well-paying job. That doesn't mean they should have to try to survive on $7 an hour, and it doesn't mean they should starve in the streets when they don't retire with enough money. I had the mindset of if I can do it, anybody can. Well, somebody with an IQ of 70 simply can't do a lot of what most people can. It wasn't anything inspiring or profound, but it was to me. I was fucking up a lot in school, doing drugs and shit, stealing from cars. One of my teachers who I had befriended over a couple years sat me down and told me, look, I didn't grow up in a bubble. I had my fair share of fun and trouble. You have to realize that the things you do, 20 years from now, you won't remember half of those things if that. But the things you do can and will affect you 20 years from now. It made me realize it's okay to fuck up and have fun, but you have to draw the line somewhere. Always resonated with me and have passed that same advice along to younger folks. If you give a man a hamburger, he will eat for a day. If you teach a man to hamburger, he will lie forever. When I was 15, I killed a bug. Just because. And realized that it won't ever come back. I had just taken a life. It came out of nowhere and really cut me to the core. All life is precious. Edit. Not something someone said. Misread the question. When someone does something that annoys you, chances are you do the exact same thing. That mirror of self-reflection can be harsh. A social sciences teacher didn't care about the school programs, so he taught us some basic philosophy theories of some of the most influential philosophers. Plato's cave story definitely changed my way of thinking. I turned from being a quick judging 15-year who jumps on every hate bandwagon to being more myself and not being afraid of having an opinion that's more different from everyone else in the class. Not trying to be a I am very smart person right now.